Hello everyone, this is Monstertaming coming at you with another Kindred Fates map ranking video, I suppose. Um, we are going into what my opinion is the number 3 map, which is Forest. I've already done one on what I think is the worst map, which Caverns. In case you're curious, you can go back and hear more of my philosophy on how I'm going to be making these videos if you want. Now, the reason I think Forest is so bad, I will give you a disclaimer right away, just full transparency. I am by far the worst at Forest, but I'm also really good at Caverns. So hopefully you can trust me to be objective with you and not just be showing favoritism, because I put a map I'm good at as the worst. So I am by far the worst at Forest of any of the maps. And those reasons that I'm bad at it are also the reasons why I think it's one of the worst maps. So just take everything I say with a grain of salt, but please trust that I'm genuinely trying not to show favoritism to any particular map. Alright, the arena is very small. It's the opposite of Caverns. Forest is in every way Caverns' opposite. It has everything. It has nothing that's wrong with Caverns is wrong with Forest, but it takes it in far, far into the opposite direction. It makes kinfolk like Lumala much harder to use because you can't use Angelic Ray. It makes kinfolk like Shovelet much harder to use because you can't use Rest. You can still use these, but it requires way more setup. Kinfolk like Skulkin even, his teleport is much lessened. Avion doesn't really have the ability to cover great distances like you can on Riverside's Ruins, or to an extreme, again, like I said, it's not particularly good on Caverns. Forest goes into the exact opposite of that extreme, where it's like you are just stuck in a small arena with your opponent and there's not really much you can do. As you saw, my Lumala couldn't even outrun Skulkin while Skulkin was spamming attacks, which is a little bit ridiculous that you couldn't get away because I really ran into an invisible wall there. If I tried to juke or something like that and go to the left or to the right or something, Skulkin could have probably cut me off, especially with something like Caustic Cloud. So, when you look at it like that, you kind of start to see, what does Forest let you do then? It lets you showcase your skill. Now, you might be thinking, why is showcasing your skill a bad thing? And it's not. Skill is an important part of the game. Your aim, your reflexes, all that is very important. But Kindred Fates is not a fighting game. It's not a first-person shooter. It is a team battling type of game. And Forest kind of removes a lot of the strategy from it. It over exemplifies the skill aspects. Like a lot of clever strategies that you might employ, like blocking off an exit on Ruins, or even Caverns, technically. Like, I don't want to praise Caverns too much, but blocking off an exit on Caverns or Ruins, you can't apply that strategy. Even on Riverside, you have different things you can take cover behind. You can try to bait your enemy. If you go behind like a rock or a tree in Riverside, your enemy doesn't know if you're going to heal or not. You pressure them into maybe making a mistake. You can take cover, like if you're playing a melee kinfolk and your enemy is spamming range attacks at you, you can force them to maybe move towards you, especially if you have like a Lumala or a Kadoki or something that you could be healing in the background with. If they refuse to engage you, you can pressure them. But on Forest, it is literally your skill and reflexes, your aim and reflexes essentially, versus your opponent's aim and reflexes with very little room for strategy. Now, I'm not going to say Forest takes all strategy out of the game, period, but you have to admit it does greatly lessen the impact of tactics. It goes way more about which kinfolk are meta and who is the physically superior player, rather than a good balance of physical and mental effort that pretty much all of the other maps do have, besides Caverns. Caverns goes, like I said, in the complete opposite direction of Forest, where your skill almost doesn't matter at all. And those two extremes, I think, it's good that we have these maps, but I feel like it would be so much better if neither of them were this extreme. I gave an example on a few ways I think we can make Caverns a little bit better. And for Forest, I think we simply move it off to the side a little bit. You can just see those trees over there in the giant log. Kind of move the barrier over there, centered maybe centered around the log, like you spawn in the middle, the log blocks your view of your opponent, kind of like ruins. You have a blocker in the middle, and then, or if you don't want to have a blocker, you could spawn it so you're on opposite ends of the log, so you can still see each other straight through it. You can still bum rush your opponents to keep a feeling of fast pace combat in forest. But yeah, center it around like that log, make it a little bit bigger so that you can actually run circles around the log a little bit. Maybe give the log a few more openings so it's not just a giant tunnel. And then you could have something that gives you some level of cover. It could still be a very close and intense fight. It could make it so that you still have to be fast paced and you can't really run and tank and turtle like you can on ruins or caverns or to a little bit of Riverside. It would just make it a lot closer in Riverside, rather than just being like an outlier, you know. I hope more maps take a design from Ruins of Riverside, just because, like I said, Forest just doesn't feel as much like Kindred Fates as these other maps do. It feels like it exemplifies a different genre almost, rather than a strategic monster battling game. It feels more like a brawler, or something probably more like Smash Bros, or maybe a fighting game or something, than a Kindred Fates type game. Which, not saying any of those games are bad. I've actually enjoyed quite a few fighting games myself before, but it's not what the devs are going for. I think they've said before that they're not trying to make this a fighting game, and so from what I understand from the design philosophy of Kindred Fates, Forest does not exemplify that, and it kind of detracts away from what you imagine you're going to be playing if you just listen to what the devs tell you about Kindred Fates, from a PvP standpoint anyways. And then you play Forest, it just doesn't feel like those ideas quite mesh together. But I've ranted on for long enough about this. I hope maybe you guys can leave your comments below. And like I said, take everything I said with a grain of salt. And remember, I'm not trying to tear down the gameplay aspects of Ruin, just mentioning that it doesn't allow for the other ones to shine as well. Until next time, this is Monstertamer Bisloba signing off. Hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.